Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Daniel DiBiasie. I'm one of the trainers here at First Due. Today, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be doing a full module internal training covering the assets module. We're going to cover it pretty much top to bottom, set up the whole module in its entirety. So without further ado, we'll go ahead, we'll get started, and we'll start in the assets module. So we'll see here, we've clicked into assets. First, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the setup and walk through setting up the assets module, take a look at what these what the setup does, how each of these fields interact with the actual module itself. So to begin, the first tab that we're going to have is settings. When we go to settings, the first thing is we have the availability to enable the primary reserve toggle. We can toggle that on or off. What this does, this allows us, when we're in the module, when we go to equipment or apparatus, we can actually enable primary or reserve apparatus. So from primary status here, we can place it in primary or reserve. If we toggle this off, this availability will not be there. We won't be able to denote a piece of apparatus as a reserve apparatus or a primary apparatus. Next, we have the availability to enable missed checks. If we enable missed checks, we have to identify the time at which checks become missed after. So essentially, the way this works, when a checklist is due, it has a due date and time that the check is to be completed. After that time frame, a check becomes overdue. If we enable missed checks, we can denote a time where those checks can no longer be completed. So for example, if a check was due today, July 26th, and I enable missed checks and note that they're going to be missed after 1 day, tomorrow that check will be logged as missed and it'll go away in the system. If this is disabled, what's going to happen is checks will just continue to pile up overdue indefinitely. So if we have a check that we missed today, if missed checks is disabled, 3 months from now, it's going to show that there's still a checklist that's overdue from July 26th. And again, those will just continue to pile up indefinitely. Next is the default inventory location. If we enable the default inventory location, we can select a location, a storage room here, where if we're adding inventory to the system, we're receiving inventory and we don't specify a place for it to go, it's going to default to whatever the selected location is here. So think about it, if you're getting a big box of EMS supplies, you can set a default location and then that inventory will be assigned to that default location if that is enabled. Next is the work order submitted by field defaults to logged in users. So when we submit a work order, what happens is there's a drop down that asks, who is this work order being submitted by? And there's nothing to prohibit me from submitting a work order and documenting that it's submitted by somebody else. If I turn this on, what's going to happen? It's going to default to whatever user is logged in. So for example, if I'm logged in, I go to submit a work order, that field is going to be defaulted to the work order being submitted by me. And again, this is something that's just going to depend on a department's workflow. They may have one person that's submitting work orders. But they want to put who they're submitted by. So maybe only the captain puts them in, but the firefighter can call the captain and say, hey, I need to put in a work order for this. If that's the case, you're going to want to leave this turned off, because that way the captain will have the availability to put the work order in, but say it was done by a third party or a different firefighter. The next tab is our checklist tab. We're going to come back to this. This is creating a checklist, how to add a checklist, and so forth and so on. Next is the work order tab. This is how we build out our work order boards. I'm going to come back to this one as well because I want to do work orders a little bit separately. And then we'll go through the work order process and then I'll show how to build the board out, how that process works. Our notification tab. This is where we control all notifications associated with the assets module. So right now we don't have the availability to use the agency email address. So it's going to use a default email address, assets@firstdue.com. So essentially what's going to happen, we're going to enable when users want to be notified of certain events that take place in the First Due system. Those emails are going to be generated from this default assets@firstdue.com. So the first one is notify of service changes. If I toggle this on, it's going to ask me, who do I want to notify? So notify of service changes essentially means anytime a piece of equipment goes in service or out of service, or an apparatus goes in service or out of service, it's going to automatically generate a service change notification. Next, we select the users that we want to send it to. All we have to do is start to type the user, the dropdown will come up, we select it, and then it'll put it in there. Now, we also have the ability to send this to user groups or teams. I believe we have one in here, A shift officers. So I can send it to A shift officers. So for these notifications, even though it says send to users, note that that can go to an individual user, or it can go to a group of users. Now, this group of users, this is something that's managed in the admin module. Let me click over here. We'll do it over here. In the admin module, when you go to fire prevention teams, even though they're labeled fire prevention teams, this is the team source that we utilize in the assets module as well. So we'll see here for A shift or A shift officers, I can go in, I can activate or deactivate the group. I can also edit the members of the group. So we go in here, we'll see all the members who are in this group. If I want to add a user, for instance, if I wanted to add myself, I could place myself in that group. And then I would be added. I'm not going to add myself because then my notifications are going to blow up all over the place. And then we can click save, or we can cancel out of that. So again, if you want the user groups are not managed in the assets module. They're managed in the admin module under fire prevention teams. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn this off. Otherwise, this is a training account. We do a lot of training out of it. If I leave all these notifications on, a lot of people are going to start getting emails every time we do a training, anytime we change something. So we'll toggle that off. Notification on work order creation, exactly what it says. Anytime a work order is created, it's going to generate a notification to whoever we specify. Next is to notify on a work order status change. We're going to get into this a little more when we start talking about work orders themselves. But excuse me, we're going to see here that work orders are going to move along a status. So for instance, it goes from reported to in-house repair. Anytime this work order moves up the ladder, moves from one position to another, that's when this work order status change notification is going to be sent out. Work order resolution is exactly that. Once a work order reaches the end of the line, it gets to a situation where it's completed and finished. That's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to send out a notification that just says, hey, this work order has been completed. Next is notify on idle work orders. This is kind of like your tattletale notification here. So if we have a work order that for whatever reason is sitting idle in a specific status, we select who this is going to go to. Again, I can select a user or a group of users, but then notice here also, I'm going to have to notify after how long it stays idle. So the department can specify. If it's sitting for 1 day, that seems a little seems probably a little premature to be sending out a notification, but maybe a chief or somebody wants to be notified anytime a work order has been sitting idle for a week or 2 weeks, or however long it may be. So we have to specify who to send it to and then when that's going to be sent out. Next is overdue equipment checks, apparatus checks, station checks, and kit checks. So if we have a checklist that's built out, when it becomes overdue, is there a user that wants to be notified? If so, again, we toggle it on, and then we're going to notify the time to notify. So maybe we have our check that is due at 10 a.m. on July 26th. Our daily checks are due at 10 in the morning. After 10 a.m., they're going to become overdue. And then next, we're going to select the time to notify. So maybe this is like an end of the day thing. Maybe at 4:30, the battalion chief wants to be notified of anything that's overdue. So again, we just put the user in, specify our time, and then we can notify at that time. Same for apparatus checks, station checks, and kit checks. Excuse me. Next, we're going to notify on below minimum items. So the below minimum items and expiring items, these are inventory fields. Inventory is what we would use is what we can document minimum quantities of. So if I turn this on, it's just going to be who am I going to notify anytime we have a quantity of inventory that's below the specified minimum. And then also if we have inventory that is expiring, who do we want to notify? So we can go through here, we turn this on. This is really cool because there's up to 3 dates that you can select when to notify on expiring items. So maybe I handle all of EMS logistics. I want to be notified 60 days prior to expiration, 30 days prior to expiration, and then 3 days prior to expiration. I want to be notified of anything that is expiring. Now, one thing about this, it is important to note that these notifications do apply system-wide in the assets module. There is no way for me to set a notification specifically to EMS inventory or specifically for an equipment check that's associated with a particular piece of equipment. These are notifications that do apply wholly throughout the system. So that is our notifications tab in the asset setup. Next, we're going to talk about external sharing. External sharing is a really, really cool feature that we offer. It's something when I first got here, I thought that, man, that's a really cool idea. So what external sharing does, it takes our fleet overview. So when we go to the apparatus checks view, take a look at our fleet overview screen. From here, we can see the entire fleet at a 3,000 foot view. We can also see if something is in service, out of service. We can see its status. Is it primary or reserve? Are there any checks due or overdue on it? We can also see the amount of work orders that are affiliated with that. So this is an active screen. We can toggle equipment. For instance, I can put battalion 2 in service by clicking on it here. I can also make it a primary unit by clicking on it, and we'll see that that updates here. What the external sharing link does, if I generate a shared link, we can go through, we can copy this link, we click OK. We'll now see that today on July 26, 2023, I generated a shared link. It's automatically good for 1 year from the date that it's completed. I can share this link with anybody, and if they click on it, it's going to give them a view-only version of that screen. Now, if I try to click here, I can't make any changes. I can't toggle it in service or out of service, but it provides a real-time view of the apparatus fleet overview screen. So this may be something handy. Maybe a department wants to send it to a neighboring dispatch center. Maybe you do a lot of, the department does a lot of primary, automatic aid or mutual aid with neighboring departments, and they want to have a link where they can see if a unit's in service, if it's out of service, so forth and so on. Now, another cool thing about this is at any time I can delete this link. If I delete the link, it's no longer going to be available. So we can delete, or we can create as many unique links that are needed, and we can send those out to different individuals. So maybe we create a unique link for each individual department, or maybe dispatch, or we've also had, I've heard of use cases where battalion chiefs will generate the shared link. They'll put the shared link on the desktop of their MDT, their PCR. That way they can just take a quick view without having to log into First Due and go through and navigate through it. They just click the link, it pulls it up, and they can take a look at service statuses of the fleet. So again, really, really cool feature here. At any time to delete that, I can just click the delete icon, or I can copy it and it'll copy that exact link. So we'll go ahead and we'll delete this one out. Once we delete it, that shared link, if anybody tries to go to it, is no longer going to be available. They're going to get a 404 error message on that. So really cool feature there. That's just something that the departments can use to share their fleet overview. Next, we're going to take a look at apparatus groups, equipment groups, station groups, and kit groups. I'm only going to go through one of these because they're all exactly the same. So we'll see the grouping. We'll talk about apparatus grouping. So what this does, if we look at our apparatus checks view, we'll see here that all of our apparatus groupings are listed here on the column to the left. So we have engines, tenders, station 12, so a bunch of different groupings that are here. Now, some departments choose to group by type. So you'll see here, this is generally set up by, we have engines, tenders, ladders, and so forth. Other departments choose to group their apparatus by location. So maybe this is station 1, and then under station 1, it'll be engine 1, ladder 1, rescue 1, rescue 2. Again, that can be set up in any way that the department or the user specifies. So we'll go back to our setup screen here. So all this is, if I want to create a new one, all I do is click new apparatus group, or I can edit or delete an existing one by using the action icons. So we'll create a new one. We can call it, fleet. Let's call it reserve fleet. I can put a description here. This is just for reserve apparatus. And next, I can click the drop down here, and then I can reassign specific apparatus to this grouping by clicking on them. Notice if they're in bold, we don't have any here that are unassigned, but if they're in bold, they'll have an assignment with them. Anything that is unassigned won't have an assignment listed, but it also won't be listed as bold. So for now, we won't assign anything to it, and then we'll click save. Now we'll see that our reserve fleet is here, and it appears this is the only one that we've put some sort of a description for. Now I can take this, and the positioning stack allows me to change the hierarchy that this shows in the system. So maybe I want my reserve fleet, I don't know why I ever would, but maybe I want that to be at the top of the list. So now when we go back over here, when we click on apparatus checks, let's see here if that went through yet. Let's do it on this one. All right. And now, for whatever reason, it would normally what should happen here is the reserve fleet should be showing up right here on the fleet overview. I'm gonna have to take a look into that. So essentially what would happen, that would show up right here. And then we can change the hierarchy. We can edit it directly from within there. So let's go back to our apparatus grouping. It's showing as there here. And again, that reserve fleet should show as a grouping here. Maybe it's not showing because we didn't assign anything to it. Let's take a look. So let's go back to the apparatus group. We're going to go to our reserve fleet, and then let's assign support 17 to it. So there we go. It'll only show up if there is an actual apparatus assigned to it. So now we'll see that reserve fleet is at the top. So good troubleshooting there. If there is nothing assigned to it, the blank category will not show up. So back to our setup. We go back to setup. We'll see here that apparatus groups, equipment groups, station groups, and kit groups, they're all exactly the same. So I create a new kit group, go through. I can assign kits. Here is, like I said, this one currently isn't assigned to any grouping. So it shows up in plain font without bold font, and there's nothing located there next to it. So that is our groupings. Next, we're going to talk about fluid types. Fluid types in the First Do system, when we go to our apparatus checks, we can actually track fluids that are placed into a vehicle. So right here, if we click add fluid, we can document the fluid type. Let's say we're adding diesel exhaust fluid, the blinker fluid, that kind of stuff. We can document. Now, what we're doing in the setup is we're actually auto-populating. We're doing field management to manage this list. So we'll go back here, we'll close the entry. So I can create a new fluid type. I can edit the existing ones, or I can delete them. So we'll add a fluid type here. Let's say we talked about adding some blinker fluid. Maybe there's like a special blinker fluid that we want to add. And then all I have to do is select the unit that we're going to be putting it in. Maybe we put special blinker fluid in by the gallon, save it. Now we'll see that we have super blinker fluid, special blinker fluid, pint, gallon. These are here. I can also delete it by clicking delete and then deleting it out. And again, now anytime I want to add fluids, more than likely you're going to see this, people are tracking fuel receipts because we have the availability. We can put in diesel, how much diesel, we put in, maybe 15 gallons. What was the cost associated with it? What was the odometer? And then we can go through, we can save it. and then those fluids show up in a running fluid tally list here. That can be, we can run reports on, we can query that. So it's a good tracking mechanism for fluid cost associated with a particular vehicle. Next, we have our inventory tab. The inventory tab essentially is the same as the groups. It was added later, so for whatever reason, it doesn't say inventory groups on it. It is inventory. The inventory groupings work the exact same way. We can create the name, we can create the description, and then we can assign inventory directly to that grouping when we create it, and then click save, or we can cancel it out. Now, one thing in the inventory tab here that's kind of hiding is the packaging tab up here at the top. This is where we manage the packaging that inventory comes in. So again, this looks exactly the same layout as kind of the groups menu. We can create new packaging, edit existing, or delete based in the actions column. So from here, we can create a new packaging, simply type the packaging name and then save it. So we see here we have 10 count boxes, 150 count boxes. Maybe we want to put a box, maybe they have a new quantity where stuff comes in 125 count box. So we can create that. And then save it, and then now we'll have a new packaging type. And where this is going to come into play is anytime we start to add new inventory, which we're going to go through creating inventory momentarily, when I can select the packaging from the drop down. So that's something we'll go over a little bit later. If I haven't built out the packaging type in the packaging tab, it's not going to be available for me when I'm adding new inventory to the system. All right, FEMA cost codes. This is something new that just came out. This was just pushed a couple days ago. We now have the availability to update the FEMA cost scheduling, and then to be able to associate that with a particular piece of equipment or apparatus. And our training one, as far as I know, last time I checked, it wasn't built out. In prod, the rate, capacities, all of this stuff is built out. So you'll see as you go through there, you're going to actually have a price rate associated with this. What a FEMA cost code is essentially when a state of disaster happens, departments can be reimbursed from FEMA for use of equipment. And all of that done is based on a cost schedule. So where this comes into play is when we're creating an apparatus or we're editing an apparatus. So for instance, for engine 99, I can go through, I can update the record, and then now there is a cost code here associated. There's a field associated with this right here. It just came, like I said, this just came out. Now I can associate the cost code associated with this apparatus itself. So again, something that's useful, especially I live in Florida, so hurricane season, we do a lot of FEMA reimbursement anytime there's a state of emergency declared. So this is really, really a cool value added feature that we now have available for our clients. That is the setup in general, how we set up the system. Again, I'm going to go back into checklists and work orders in a little bit. But first, we're going to do just kind of a broad overview of the system. I think once we do that, going through the setup afterwards will make a little more sense than jumping in before. All right, so without further ado, let's jump into the system itself. What you're going to notice that we have a couple different views here. So apparatus, equipment, station, and kits, we have what are called checks views. And then down under work order boards, we have what are called our list views. There are some minor differences between apparatus, equipment, stations, and kits, but for the most part, these views are going to be kind of the same layout, the same format. The same thing when it comes to the lists themselves. There are going to be some small, intricate differences, but not huge, but we'll go through that. And then we also have our inventory list. We'll talk about our bulk equipment checks, and then work order history and the system log a little bit later. So your checks views, these are going to be the views. When I train this to individuals, I explain these are the views that we're going to use probably more so on an operational level. When we're going to be starting checklists, we're going to be tracking fluid cost, fluid stuff, or maybe we have a daily log, work orders, things of that nature. For the most part, we're going to be utilizing the checks view. The list views I think of as more of an admin view. So again, what these are, the list views, these are master lists of pretty much all of the apparatus in the system. I can also, the equipment list is a master list of all of the equipment in the system. So what's going to happen if I try to manage equipment from these list views? So for instance, if I wanted to manage this turnout coat, other than the specifics of the coat itself, changing make, model, that kind of stuff, if I click on it, what it's going to do, it redirects me to the checks view for that particular piece of equipment. So a lot of your operational stuff is going to happen from these checks views. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through apparatus checks first. So we'll see here, we talked about the fleet overview. So what happens, I can take a look. If I click on this, it's going to take me directly to Battalion 1. I can also, again, toggle it in service, out of service. I can toggle it from primary to reserve. I can also start a checklist directly from this view here. So if I want to start a checklist, all I have to do, if I click on this, it's going to take me to Engine 7's checklist that's due, put me right in that checklist, and then I can go through and begin that check. Also, if I want to look at the associated work orders, so for Battalion 1, what this is going to do, if I click on these 8 work orders, it's going to hyperlink me to the Battalion 1 checks view and take me to the work order tab where I can view the work order, edit the work order, or delete the work order. So again, that is our fleet overview screen. I can also search for a particular apparatus here using the search field. We can click on that. Now I can see anything with engine 99 in it. Basically what we've done is we've filtered the list down. So kind of an easy way to locate that individual apparatus to begin to manage it. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to engine 99. And then we're going to take a look at engine 99. We're going to look at how this breaks out. So the engine 99 overview screen, if I expand this, this is going to give me a general overview of engine 99. So we see it's a 2017. It carries 1,000 gallons of water. It has 1 mile on it. The odometer is 1. We have 250 hours on the PTO, engine hours, pump hours. There are no aerial hours and so forth. We can see the last time a checklist was done on this. So the first due Academy demo checklist was done on June 21st. I can also go to work order history here. If I click on this, it's going to take me directly to the work order history board here at the bottom. However, it's going to filter it down specifically for engine 99. So I'm going to see a filtered view of the work order history just for engine 99. From here, I can view the work order, I can edit the work order, or I can delete the work order. So we'll go back here. It's going to take us back to our overview screen. I can also create a work order directly from this screen. So I can go in, click create work order. Again, I'm going to go through, I'm going to talk about the work orders in their entirety a little bit later, but this is where we would create those work orders. Fluids we kind of touched on earlier. I can click add fluid. It is going to pre-fill to the date. I can put the location that we added. So maybe we went to 123 Main Street or wherever we went. It's going to pull that location out of the system. I can put it in here. Who added the fluid? What was the fluid type? Maybe we added diesel. It's going to pre-fill to the specification that we built out earlier in the setup. Maybe we put 15 gallons. We can put the cost. I don't know what 15 gallons of diesel will cost. Let's call it 85 bucks. So we can put in that we put 85 dollars worth of diesel. We can also put the odometer reading. So now maybe the odometer was up to 250 miles. And then I can put I can freeform any kind of information that I want to put in here. So maybe it was fueled prior to shift change. We go ahead, we click save. And then now we can go to fluids here. We can see that the fluid has been added. We added the diesel, the cost has been added. And then our note that we put in, fueled prior to shift change. But also something I want to make sure that you notice here, it also updated the odometer field for engine 99. So that's a kind of a cool feature. If somebody fuels it, it's going to automatically keep a running odometer, an accurate odometer reading. Next is the log entry. I can add a log entry from here. So we go through, we click add. I can put a system log in here. Maybe you have a department that that documents that the apparatus was washed and waxed. And then I can also attach files or images to this. So maybe we want to put a picture of the nice clean engine. When I click save, now when I go down to the logbook here, we'll see here that it added a log entry for that engine. So really cool view here. A lot of the stuff that you need to do, you can do directly from the overview screen. Assign to user, I can assign this to a user. Think of like an engine likely won't be assigned to an individual user. Sometimes this may come in handy. One, it comes in very handy with equipment. So if you have equipment that's assigned to a specific user, or it's assigned to an apparatus or a location. So let's pull a piece of equipment up here. Let's take a look. Let's look at these boots. So we'll see here, these can be assigned to either a user, we can put them in a compartment, we can put them in a storage, or they can be put in a pouch. So it looks like these boots specifically are in the 111 PPE kit. So they're currently assigned to a kit here. Again, I can change them. I can assign this to a particular user, or I can put them on an engine compartment. All I have to do is select the one that applies and then select it from the drop-down list. So you'll notice here, like I said, these are very similar, yet slightly different. For instance, you're not going to have odometer readings and things like that that were available for apparatus. You know, again, we don't have the primary reserve toggle and that kind of stuff. So again, very similar views. However, there are some small differences associated with them. So back to Engine 99, vehicles may end up being assigned to users. Maybe you have like a fleet vehicle. Maybe the fire marshal has a vehicle that's maybe a take-home vehicle. So from here, we can assign that vehicle directly to a user. From here, I can toggle this vehicle in service or out of service, just like we could from the overview screen. If I put it out of service, what's going to happen? It's going to start this, we'll come back to this momentarily. It's going to start this out of service clock. And then notice this out of service clock is a cumulative clock that runs. So this allows departments to be able to track the amount of time that a piece of equipment has been out of service for its entire lifetime, not just for the duration currently. So again, if you have over the life of the vehicle, this vehicle has been placed out of service over 1,029 hours and 36 minutes. So we can toggle it back in service. I'm going to explain this here momentarily. And then the primary reserve toggle allows me to toggle this from a primary to a reserve apparatus. And then it's going to update, or we can go ahead and we can toggle it back. Also hidden up here in the right-hand corner is the update record button. When we click update record, what this is going to do, this is going to relocate me from the apparatus checks view to the actual record list for this particular apparatus. So for engine 19, if I click update record, it's going to take me into the specifications for that specific apparatus. So here we can update all the information associated with that from within here. Now we can add that FEMA cost code that we talked about a little earlier. But again, all the information, the vehicle ID, if there's a fleet number, how the NFIRS apparatus ID is reported, what is the NFIRS use, is it a suppression, EMS, other, again, the dispatch unit, some departments, remember, they'll have engine 19, but they'll have separate vehicle numbers or fleet vehicle numbers. So maybe the department vehicle ID is based on a fleet number, but the dispatch unit can be different, and so forth. Next is the NFIRS apparatus type. So this deals when we're dealing with NFIRS reporting. What type of apparatus is it? Again, we can document the make, model, who owns it, manufacturer year, month, build, manufacturer ID. Again, we can change the status from here. We can upload an image, update all of the current PTO hours, pump hours, that kind of stuff. The engine hours can be updated manually from here. We can, the VIN, again, all the information associated with the apparatus. This is where we can edit that information. Our specifications here, is there a normal staffing level associated with it? We can do tire size, tire pressure, water gallonage, does it have foam? Does it provide ALS support? So again, a lot of information that can be captured for the apparatus here. Here is EMS data, statistical data, what year, how many hours did it accrue, miles accrued, so certification levels. What's the crew state level, how many EMS personnel, non-transport, non-911, we can update all of that EMS data directly from this screen. Also, we can see any associated checklists that are associated from here, work orders, fluids, again, just another view of the fluids, the logbook, and the compartments. We're going to go through managing compartments here momentarily, but we're going to do it from the other view. So again, this is the apparatus list view for the engine. All we did essentially was we hyperlinked over from the top. We'll go to engine 99 from the update record button. It just hyperlinked us over into that. Next, we're going to go ahead and we'll take a look at checklists, and then we're going to kind of dive in a little bit into what a checklist looks like, how we build the checklist, how we assign the checklist, so forth and so on. So from here, I can expand this out. I can look at the checklist history. So when I click this, we'll see here that I use this demo check quite a bit. So we'll see where this is done. I can view the results of the checklist. So we'll see here, this is pass-fail question. Did it pass inspection? We'll see here that it failed. We can go through, we can take a look at all of that. Also, what we can do, if we take a look at the checklist history, we can see a printer-friendly view that can be printed to PDF, where we can also, from this view, we'll also see the inspection signature that was associated with it. So we'll see here, it looks like I completed it, signed with a smiley face because everybody needs a smile. And then I can choose to actually go through and print this out, or I could save it to PDF, whatever I wanted to do directly from this print view tab. All right. This can also be filtered by specific checklist. It can be filtered by date, and then we can filter this list down. So maybe I'm only looking for checklist history for the first due academy check in the last month. So I can do the first due academy demo check. There's only 4 of them, so I don't have to filter it down, but I could even filter by specific date range here to take a look at that. I can also pull up any incomplete checklist. So we'll see here that these are checklists that have been started, but have not been completed. So here I can jump in, I can resume the checklist, or I can click to join a check. So when I see the join check option, this means that someone else is already in the checklist. They've already started it, and they're currently in it, they're currently doing it. I can join it as a second user, or I can go through and then resume the incomplete checklists from here. So maybe we go in, we start the check, the apparatus gets a call, so we get banged out to the call. When we get to the call, I come back, I can go to the incomplete checklist and then resume my check directly from here. So we're going to jump out of that. Now, one thing I do want to show you, this demo checklist that I have open from May 15th, I'm going to join it. Now, one thing that you'll notice when I join it, now I can see the users. This one's set up, I'm actually in here twice as separate users, kind of did that a little intentionally, that way I can demonstrate this. If there are more than one user in the check, the submit button, they disappear. So I cannot complete a check with multiple users in the checklist. Once this gets down to only having one user in it, I will have the availability to actually complete the checklist. So this is something that's really cool. Essentially what will happen is if, for instance, I show up for work, I'm the captain on the engine, I have my engineer does the apparatus checklist, but I have my medic that checks out all of the medical compartments. They can both be in the checklist at the same time. They can go to their respective portion of the checklist, go through, do it, and then once they complete that checklist, they can complete their portion, but they're not able to submit it erroneously before someone else is done. So at that point, they would just exit the check, and then whoever the last user is in there, they're going to be able to submit the completed checklist. Now, one thing, if a user is in the checklist, after I believe it's 5 minutes, it's either 5 or 15 minutes, there were some changes that were made. What's going to happen is the system will automatically purge users out that are idle, that aren't doing anything. So maybe I'm out, I'm in a checklist, the chief calls, they say, hey, you're getting floated to station 3. So I leave, but I forget to back out of that checklist after a specified amount of time. That user is going to be purged from the checklist. So we'll go back here. What we're going to do, we'll go through and we'll do the First Do Academy demo check. Let's see here. We'll go through. Instead of joining that one, let me take a look here. Let's go to incomplete checklist. I'm going to resume this check here. So there are several different types of questions that you're going to be able to build out when we build a checklist. And I'm going to show you from here what that looks like before I show you how to build the checklist. So the first is a pass or fail question, right? So does the item pass inspection? It's either going to pass or fail. So I can click pass, it turns green, gives me a thumbs up, and we can move forward, right? Or I can fail it. Now, if I fail it, there's an option when I build the checklist out that if it fails, it automatically requires a work order to be generated. So we'll go through, we'll generate a work order for this failed thing. So it basically, when the checklist was built out, we said, if this fails, it needs to generate a chassis work order with chassis major. Who's it submitted by? We'll see here, it's submitted by me. We can go through, I can specify a vendor. I can assign it to a particular team or a user. I'll go ahead and I'll just assign this one to myself. It's engine 99. It's going to require a summary. I'll just put that it's broken. If I did any work, so maybe I failed it, but I was able to fix a piece of it, I can document that here. And then attachments. Maybe I want to go ahead and upload an attachment, a photo of damage or something like that. I can click and drag and drop, or if I'm on a mobile device, I'll have the availability to utilize the camera to take a picture and attach the picture. Once that's done, we're going to click create. So now this has failed. And then now we'll see here this little, it looks like a bus ticket to me. If I click on that, that shows me that a work order has been created. Now, one good thing about this, if this is a daily check, tomorrow, when tomorrow's crew comes in and they start to do the checklist on the apparatus, maybe it's something that needs to be fixed, but the apparatus can stay in service. If they fail it, it's not going to require them to generate another work order because the system is going to know that the current work order is outstanding when that failed. The next is a single select question type. So we go through, it's just like taking a test in high school or college. You got your options, pick one, which is the right answer. So this may say, what is the fuel level? It could be, quarter of a tank, half a tank, and you just basically, the fuel level can't be more than one thing, just pick one. So for this one, we'll pick option A. Next is a multi-select. So this is a question type that is select all that apply. So we can do A, B, C, or D. We can put them all together. And then we have user-defined questioning. So basically this creates a free-filled form. So then we can type in any kind of a response here. So we'll put that in, we'll just type sample response. And then also on all of these, you notice to the side, we have the ability to attach images or remarks. So again, this is going to be automatically there. So I can put notes associated with my response. I can also attach an image associated with my response as well. Also, we have numerical input fields. So this is kind of a really cool feature. This is currently being updated from the way that we used to do it on the back end side when you build the checklist out. But essentially, these are fields that once we update these, they actually update a field associated with that particular piece of equipment or the apparatus. So for instance, for this odometer input field, if I put now that the odometer on this is 1,000, it's going to automatically update it where we showed back here our odometer associated with the engine. So when we go to engine 99, when I actually update this and complete the checklist, it actually keeps a running log. It will update that odometer. Another cool feature with this is there is a fail-safe. So we know that we changed the odometer on this apparatus to like 250. So if I put that maybe I want to put 250 in here, but I put 25. When I go to submit this, it's going to flag and it's going to say, hey, this doesn't look right. Odometers don't go backwards. Are you sure this was the odometer? Next, we have the availability to associate additional tools, things of that nature with a check. So we'll see here that the power tools have been associated with this check as well. We'll say that the inventory, it has me checking the inventory of bar chain oil. We can pass that, and then we'll go through and submit the checklist. So there is a really cool feature where you can do a checklist within a checklist, which I can show a little bit later. So we go to submit this. Now this is the warning modal I talked about. This is the values you're trying to change are lower than previous. Do you want to continue? So nothing stops me from submitting this here, but it does give a warning. It said, hey, this said 250. Now you're trying to put 25. Do you want to do that? For this, I'll just go ahead and click submit and submit it. The worst case scenario, I guess, is tomorrow when it's done, somebody puts the accurate one in, it'll just re-update it. So we'll submit it in. It's going to ask me for a signature. If I have a signature stored, I can click the fill button. It'll fill my save signature. And then I can go through, save it. And then now we've basically completed that checklist. So we'll go through, I believe I had on the new one, equipment checks associated with it. So you'll see here, this is when there's a piece of equipment associated with a checklist. So essentially, and we're going to talk about associating compartments with a checklist. And I'll show you how to do that when we get to compartments a little later. But essentially what this is saying is that there's a generator in the rear compartment that right now you're doing the apparatus daily check or whatever. However, this piece of equipment also has a checklist that's due on it. Do you want to do that checklist as well? So think of it as like a checklist within a checklist. So what I can go through, now I have the option. Do you want to do the one that's due today? Or do you want to do the one that is overdue from March 25th? So we'll go through, we'll do the one that's due today. I can click on that. I'll go through, I can pass the checklist for that powered equipment check, submit it, sign it. Once I save this, it completes the generator's checklist. And then the system is going to put me back in to the checklist that I was in. Now we'll see that that checklist that was due today is no longer available. It's going to ask me, do you want to go through and do the overdue checks? Because, you know, for example, for whatever reason, missed checks are not enabled when this was created. Therefore, these overdue checks are piling up. So I can go through, complete the overdue check, and then I can go through and actually complete the checklist that we're in. So from here, we're going to go back. Also, I want to take note to this right here, view instructions. When we build the checklist, you have the availability to add instructions to the checklist. This will only show up if, when the checklist was being built, we chose to add instructions. So for instance, think of this as like broad instructions for the entire checklist. So we'll click on this, and I did this as a sample for the Academy. It opens up. Basically, these are the checklist instructions. The checklist must be completed. Have a safe weekend, and thanks for joining us. Whatever you want to put in there. This is where you put the checklist instruction, where this can become really handy when you're doing hose checks, things like that, where the specifications associated with each length or diameter of hose, pressures are different, things like that. You can actually upload the standard to how to be NFPA compliant with that check, so forth and so on. But again, that button will only appear if there are instructions associated with the checklist itself. Also up here, when doing the check, I can have this thumbs up button. If I do it, it's going to pass everything in the section. I can also collapse the sections, move them up and down. I can collapse the whole section. I can expand and collapse the questions only, or I can collapse the entire section. So really, really cool the way this has been built out. Also, when we do it on an iPad, it's set up exactly the same way. Not a lot of differences with that. Basically, when we do a checklist on the mobile app, it's going to look the same. So now what we're going to do, now that you've seen the checklist, while this is all fresh, what I want to do is I want to go back to the setup and then actually walk through how to build the checklist. How do we create these? So we're going to go to setup. We're going to go to checklist, and then we're going to create a new checklist. So from here, I can look at a list of current checklists. I can deactivate a checklist. I can edit it. I can copy it. I can export it or download it to an Excel file, or I can send it to the trash bin or archive. Essentially what will happen if this checklist has been done, it's going to archive. If there's no associated historical checks, it's just going to delete it from the system. So big difference between deactivating and archiving or deleting. If there's a checklist that I don't want to be available, or maybe I just want to pause it, I can deactivate the checklist and it won't schedule itself. It won't be available to be scheduled. The good thing about this, if I deactivate my annual host testing, I can deactivate it and we'll see that it's inactive. So it won't be in the system. Users can't use it. However, if I want to reactivate it, all I have to do is come back, click the check mark, click yes, and now it's reactivated. If I delete or archive it, I'm going to basically have to rebuild that entire checklist from scratch. All right, so let's go from there. We're going to go ahead, we're going to add checklist. It's going to bring us to our checklist modal where we can go out and we can actually build the checklist. So we'll back this up. We're going to name it. It has to be named. We'll call it a sample checklist. Now it's going to ask me, how do I want the answers to default? Do I want to require a user check, pre-fill passing, or pre-fill failing? Generally what this means when we go into the checklist that we were in had a require user check. Essentially, when you look at the question, it's blank, or you can do it where everything is pre-filled as passing. So when I open the checklist, everything's automatically marked as passing, or everything's automatically marked as failing, and the user has to change it. So we're going to make it a require a user check. Next, we have to select what does this apply to. So are we building an apparatus check? Are we building an equipment check? Are we building a station check, or are we building a kit check? For this one, we'll go through, we'll build an apparatus check. A couple things I want to show you here. When I do apparatus check, I'm going to get a new field that pops up. It's scheduled when. So what this does, this only applies to apparatus checks. I can select when this is going to be scheduled. This comes in very, very handy when you're doing daily apparatus checks. So for instance, the crew comes in, they do a daily check. Well, now chief comes down and goes, hey, that truck's going out of service. It's going up to fleet. It's going to be there for 2 months. If I have this checklist to where it only schedules when the apparatus is in service, what it's going to do when that apparatus is placed out of service, this check isn't going to be scheduled. So it'll essentially pause it until the apparatus goes back in service and is marked as a primary. When that happens, again, the system will automatically resume that checklist as being due. So we'll leave it as in service and primary. If you want the checklist to show up always, just select all of them, and then it'll always schedule regardless of what the apparatus status is. Next is assigned to users and teams. This is very, this is kind of misleading. This field here is very important. I'm going to say 99% of the time, and I know that statistics, 74% of statistics are made up on the spot, but what this does, if you assign the checklist, it makes it where only that user or that team is able to complete it. So again, I would say 99% of the time, we're going to leave this blank. So we're going to leave this where it's not assigned to anybody in particular. It's in the system, that apparatus, anybody who logs in can complete it. Again, don't confuse this by thinking, oh, I'm going to assign this to a specific apparatus. So we'll see a lot of times people have apparatus user logins that they use for mobile responder. So they say, oh, I'm creating apparatus. I'm going to assign this to a user, and they select, engine 21 out of the user list. What that's going to do, that's going to make it where the only person that can click on start check in the system is going to be if somebody's logged in as that apparatus login. So again, most of the time we're going to leave this blank. There are some rare instances where somebody has to be certified to do a certain technical checklist. Maybe you have an air pack technician who's certified to do like in-services on air packs or something like that, to where then you can build out like an in-service equipment check that we can assign it only to a particular team or user, and then only those users are available to actually do the checklist. We'll see here, we can make the check active or inactive. And this is where we can go through and we can attach those instructions. So again, if we attach those instructions, when we go into the checklist, we're going to have that button available. For this one, we're not going to do it. Another thing that we're going to see if we go to equipment, works the same way, where we can do it when it's in service or out of service. But we're also going to get a new button here. The new button is the bulk check button for equipment. If we're creating a checklist that is intended to be done in bulk, meaning we can do multiple pieces of equipment at the same time using our bulk check feature, this has to be on when creating the checklist. If this is not turned on, the checklist will not appear in the bulk checks field. So bulk check cannot be assigned unless we turn that on. So we'll go through, we'll turn it back off. We're going to go in, we'll make this another apparatus. It doesn't matter. We're just going to go through really quick and kind of show how to create that checklist. Next, I have to create a checklist category. When I create the checklist category, what that's going to do, let's go back to apparatus check. Let's go to this one here, this daily DOT check. When we go in the checklist, the categories are these big blue headers that we see here, that we can collapse them down and then or open them up. So the column on the left is the blue headers. So we can go through, we're going to create a category. We'll just call it demo 1. I can add another category. We'll call it demo 2. And then so forth. So we can go through and create these demo categories. Oops. Go in here, edit it, call this demo 3. This one here I didn't want to do, so I'll just delete it off. So we'll take that off. So now we'll see those categories are there. I can deactivate a category directly from this screen. Maybe you want to just deactivate a particular category. Again, that works the same way as deactivating the entire checklist. I can edit it directly from here, or I can delete it directly from here. So when I click edit, it's going to let me basically edit the name of the category. Now, whatever category I have highlighted here, if I go to add the checklist item, this is where it's going to add it. So if I have demo 2 highlighted, I click add checklist item, it's going to add the question in the demo 2. If I want to add a question to demo 1, I have to be in demo 1, and then I can add the question. This is where we're going to build the questions out. So it's going to ask me essentially what type of answer. We talked about this. So we're going to have pass fail, single select, multi-select, user defined, or field update. So again, if I want to do a pass fail question, that's going to give me the pass or fail buttons. So we'll build that one. Pass fail, what is the question? So did the equipment pass? I can also put a description specifically associated with this question. So maybe it might be something, maybe fuel level. And then right here, if fuel level is full, click full, or whatever we want to do. Next is going to ask me, is this a required question? If I toggle this on, a user cannot complete the checklist unless this question is answered. All right. Next, it's going to ask me, do you want to create a work order if this fails? This is what we demonstrated earlier. If not, if I toggle this off, a user can select fail and they can just move right on to the next question. If we want the work order to be created, like the one that was in our demonstration that we did, we go through, we go to the work order type. What type of work order are we going to be creating? So for this one here, maybe it's a power equipment question. And we're going to do it chain replacement. Again, I know that makes no sense in an apparatus check, but for here, we're just demonstrating it. Next, that question is complete. So we can go through, we can add another question. Maybe you have a lot of questions that you're building out that you don't want to go through and redo it all. Maybe everything is the same. We're just going to be changing the question. We can go through, we can duplicate the question. It's going to duplicate it. And then now maybe I just want to change, did the equipment pass to, did the, apparatus pass or whatever. Maybe you're only changing one word, whatever that may be. We want this to be a required question and so forth. Building out the checklist is that simple. We'll go through, we'll add another question here. So let's add a different one. So we'll add this one just to show the different types. Now I can do single select. So when I do the single select, I can make the question, choose an option, choose one option. I can put a description, make it required. All of that's the same. Now the answer to question 1, this is the answer that's actually going to appear in my buttons. So right here, they did fuel level, maintain above 3/4. This is the description. And then what are the buttons that I want to be? So maybe we want this one to be option 1. We want option 2. And again, we build that out. That's how we're going to build those buttons and option 3. Now, this gets really cool here as well, because now we have the opportunity to, again, with the work order question, if they select option 1, do we want this to make them create a work order? Is this essentially a fail? If so, toggle it on, go through the work order type, just like we did before. If they select option 2, is this a fail? Yes, we can make it where if they select any of them, it automatically creates a work order. I don't know that that would make much operational sense, but again, that's how we build those out. So again, that's single select. We can change it to a multi-select. So now essentially the only difference is instead of only being able to select one, they can select all of them. And then the next type, we talked about user defined. It's just going to basically create a question. You put the question, they're going to have that free form box where they can type whatever they want. And then next is field update. If you click field update, this is going to generate the question. Basically, what do you want to update? So for current odometer, like we did the odometer question earlier, if we put current odometer, the question is basically going to be current odometer reading. When you put in that information, it's going to update the field associated with whatever apparatus we schedule this to. All right, so we go through. We're going to put an odometer update question in here. We'll make that a required question. We'll make all of these required questions. And then for this, we can just make a pass fail sample question. We'll require that one. And we won't create a work order on this. We're going to delete demo 3 just for the sake of time. And then we can go through. Everything is done. I've built the checklist out. This is an apparatus check that we've built. So now I can go through. I'm going to call this sample checklist 1, 2, 3, just so it's easy to find. And we're going to save it. So now we've created sample checklist 1, 2, 3. So let's find it. Let's see where we put it at. Let's go. Let's search for it here. So here's our sample checklist 1, 2, 3. So sample checklist 1, 2, 3 was created. It's important to note that this checklist is created. It's sitting here. However, currently it doesn't apply to anything. It's just sitting in the system, waiting to be assigned, waiting to be told where to go. The very next step is this checklist needs to be scheduled. We do that through the checklist scheduler. So we go to the checklist scheduler. We can edit a checklist schedule from here. We can, again, inactivate it or delete it. From here, what we're going to do, we're going to go through, we're going to create a new scheduler. What is the name of it? We're going to call it daily apparatus sample check. When do I want it to start? We'll start them today. When do I want it due? So essentially what's going to happen, this checklist cannot be started until the calendar date is July 26th. So at midnight on July 26th, this is going to get issued out. Now the due time is when do we want this due by? So maybe this is a daily check. Maybe we want it done by 10 in the morning, right? So we'll go through, we'll put 10 in the morning. Then we have to go through and schedule it. Remember this time right here, this is where the notify with overdue checks. This is the time where we're specifying at what time after, if these are overdue, when is that notification going to go out? So now schedule type. We have different types of schedules that we can do here. Unscheduled. If I select this as unscheduled, it's always going to show up. It's going to basically be an impromptu check that I can start at any time. So if I click it unscheduled and I go to whatever apparatus I assign it to, it's always going to be available for me to just click start on it and start that checklist. I can do a custom schedule. So when I go through, I can do a rotation based on days. So we can rotate it up to 31 days. So on a 31-day rotation, maybe I want it done every 25th day. I can do it that way. I just select it here. And based on out of 31 days, I want it done on the 13th day, the 30th day, the 25th day, however I want it done, I can do it directly from here like that. And then click done. At the end of 31 days, this is going to recycle. It's going to rotate through. It's important to note that these aren't dates. This is the 13th day in the 31-day cycle, the 25th day in the 31-day cycle. It may not fall on the 25th of the month, but maybe I need something that's to be done every 30 days, regardless of what the date is. That's how I do this here. So basically, I've selected this one. Now I have to select, does it apply to an apparatus? We created an apparatus one. And then what do I want to assign it to? Maybe I want to assign it to all my engines. So I'm going to put this, we're going to assign it to the engines. Now this checklist here, let's do our sample checklist. Our sample checklist is now going to be due every 13th, every 25th, and every 30th day of a 31-day cycle. Now, maybe there's a different checklist I want to schedule here. Maybe we do a weekly check and then we do a monthly check. I can also go through and maybe I want to do the tender check and I want that one done on the 18th day, the 10th day, and so forth. So that's how we can go through and do custom scheduling. Another thing we can do custom monthly. So when we go to monthly schedule, this is where we're going to see. I'm going to take this out of here. Let's get rid of that one. We're going to do checklist one, our sample checklist on Sunday. I want it on the first Sunday of every month. And I also want it done on the third Monday. And then now we can go through, I click done, that'll schedule it on a custom monthly check. We also have the availability to do it daily. If we do it daily, we lose those options because every day this is going to show up as due. Same with weekly, monthly, and then we can do it every 3 months, every 6 months, every year, and so forth. So that's how we go through scheduling the check. What we're going to do is I'm going to put this as unscheduled just so I can kind of show you what that looks like. Go through, click done. We've now saved our checklist. And it now should be available as an unscheduled check on all of our engines. So let's see here. Let's refresh it. So here is our apparatus demo checklist. Now we would be able to go through and we could start those checks. So this is what the unscheduled checks look like. They always show up. If we complete them, they never go away. So that's building out a checklist. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go in, we're going to talk about work order boards. Before we jump to that, I want to show you with equipment. One of the differing features with equipment is we do have the ability to do our barcode scanning feature. So when we're searching for equipment, we have the barcode field up here. So what I can do is if I click on this, it'll open the camera. I can then go through, scan the barcode. And now we'll see that this generator, it took me to this this specific generator. So that's how our barcode feature works. To associate the barcode when you're building out a piece of equipment or the equipment is being added in. What we want to do is for the equipment ID here, where it asks for the equipment ID, I can click the barcode scan. When I scan the blank ID, it's now going to associate that with this specific generator. So we go through, we click save. Now, anytime I go through, again, from the overview screen, click on the barcode scanning feature, that barcode is going to take me right to that piece of equipment. Makes it really, really easy, really simple to locate equipment. And again, going through here, I'll just show you everything is, it looks pretty much exactly the same. So we go through, we have our checklists, and then we're going to go through, we're going to talk about work orders momentarily here. And then notice for equipments, there's no compartments, there's no storage with an equipment because you can't put equipment in other equipment. Station checks, it's going to be the same type of a view. We go through, again, not going to go through all of these because it does essentially mirror, they mirror each other. One thing I'm going to do before I do go to work order boards, though, I'm going to go to bulk checks just because it makes sense while we're talking about checklist here. If you build out a bulk check, what the bulk check feature allows us to do, it allows us to do a check on up to 30 pieces of equipment at the same time. So you'll see this a lot of times with hose testing. Hose testing is kind of the big thing that users want looked at. So we have 3 sections here. We have overdue, due today, and then completed. So let's go through here. Looks like nothing here is scheduled, so we'll do this ladder testing here. So we'll go through, there's nothing overdue. We'll see here that there is ladder tests that are due today to be completed. So we'll go through, we're going to select all the ladders that we're going to do the ladder testing on. Again, important to note that you can select up to 30 pieces of equipment to go ahead and start the check. Next, we're going to click the Start Checks button. We'll see here the bulk check information. We'll see here that this is the NFPA 1932 annual, and we can go through and do the bulk check. It'll also show us that we're doing this on 5 ladders from the ladder equipment group. We can click this, it'll downsize it and give us a little more real estate to deal with. Now, if I click pass, we'll see here that the thumbs up has a 5 in it. So what's actually happening, this is the same exact format as the other checklist, but if I expand this, you can see that basically what we're doing is these 5 individual checklists, we're just completing them all at the same time. So maybe I want to pass all of them, but then maybe I look and roof ladder 99AW actually failed. I can go through, I can fail it, and then I can create a work order specifically for that one. So we go through, we click it. Now from this view, it's a very quick work order. The work order that's going to be created, the description is actually going to be halyard. So whatever the question was, that's what's going to show up on the work order when you're doing bulk checks. So I'll expand this so you can kind of see what's happening. When we click pass, what it's doing, it's passing everything. So we can go through, we can pass, we'll pass all of these, go through, submit the bulk check, sign it, and then click save. And then now we'll see that annual ladder testing has been submitted, and all of those pieces of equipment, we'll see that those bulk checks have been completed there. So again, bulk checks, really, really cool feature, a newer feature that we've had just a couple months, but a lot of departments, this makes hose testing, documenting hose testing a lot easier. So really, really cool feature that we have, but very important that bulk checks are scheduled the same way as any equipment check is scheduled that we just went through. However, when the checklist is being built out, very, very important, you have to toggle that bulk check toggle on, otherwise it's not going to happen. It won't show here. All right, so that's our bulk checks. Next, we're going to go through, we were going down the apparatus checks view, and we were coming up to work orders. So when we get to work orders, for each individual piece of equipment, station, whatever, we're going to have this work order tab. We can open it up. We can create a new work order. We can look at the work order history. I can view, edit, or delete an existing work order. So what we'll do is we'll walk through the process of creating a new work order. So for Engine 99, we're going to create a new work order. It's going to ask me essentially the same stuff that it asked when we created the work order from failing in the checklist. I'm going to submit it. We're going to put it on the demo board. We select some general type here. Do I want to associate it with a vendor? Who do I want to assign it to? The asset type is on Engine 99. We're going to put the sample. We'll just put a sample. Something's broken. Again, attachments. I can click create. Now that's going to bring this to the work order board. So when I go to assets, I go to the work order boards. Notice we have a number here. It just changed from 2 to 3. This tells me that I have something assigned to me in the system. So I'll go through, click on it, and now we'll see on the demo board, this is the work order that I had just created. So this is a really, really cool feature. I really like the way we lay out this tile format for work orders. So maybe I get the work order, I received it, I come in, I can move this directly to in progress. So now I've updated the status of the work order from received to in progress. I can also, if there were multiple work orders, I know that this equipment one here has multiple work orders. Maybe I want to sort these by, most important to least important, maybe prioritize. I can slide this one up to the top. I can move them along left and right just by dragging and dropping. We'll go back to our demo board here. I can click the eyeball. It's going to give me a view, an overview of the work order, labor hours, cost, things like that. I can print it from here, delete it from here, or I can edit it directly from here. But we'll go through, we'll hit the edit icon, exactly the same as hitting it on the previous screen. I can go through here. This is the board submitted by me. What's the status, the work order type? Is there a vendor? I can put it, maybe we're sending this out to Jim's Fire. The asset type is frozen out because it was created for that asset. Here I can update the summary, the description. Maybe the firefighter said that something was wrong with it. And then I can go through and maybe put a more technical, maybe I'm a maintenance tech and I can say, okay, description, this is what's wrong. I can update it from here. I can also add attachments. I can also update the hours associated with the apparatus from here. Next, I can go over to cost. I can add cost associated with it. So maybe I put 2 labor hours in, and the parts to fix it were $125. And then maybe my labor cost is $50 an hour. So we'll now see here that $50, maybe my labor cost is $50 an hour. So we had 2 hours, so that's $100 in labor cost. So now we can keep a running tally that essentially labor was 100, parts were 125. I can see the work order total here as well. So we can go to comment. I can type a comment, sent this out to Jim's for repair. Send it, it's going to put that in there. And then now I'll have the comment associated with the work order. And then when I click the history, the system is automatically going to grab anytime something is changed here. So the work order was created. We have the timestamp who created it. We also have the where we changed it to in progress. And then we have the comment that was added, sent it out. So now I can save this, and then everything will be updated in that work order. When we go through, we can look at it. We've updated the parts cost, the labor cost, all of that information. So work orders are really, really easy to create. You can also filter using the filter lists up here. So maybe I only want to look at stuff that's assigned to me. So I can go through, I can look for things, oh, that's team, excuse me, that are only assigned to me. I can go through, apply it, and search, and it's only going to show me the work orders that are assigned to me. So if we go to equipment, I have one, the latter one that we had failed that I assigned to myself, and then so forth. I can go through those boards and see. Very important. One of the biggest things that we see when we talk to users is them not realizing this right here. It's kind of subtle. You change the work order board from here. So they submit something to a work order board, have multiple boards, like, oh, I don't see it. How do I navigate between the boards? This is very important. The drop down here, we can have different boards for different things. This is where that magic happens. So what we'll do is we'll go through. Now we're going to go back to the setup, and I'm going to show you how to build this out and how to create this. So we'll go back to our setup. We're going to go back to work orders. Again, this changes the hierarchy of the boards. Notice the one that we just went to, the top board is going to be the default board. That's the board that's going to show up when you click on the button. And then I can change it. Maybe I want to change the order in which these appear in the dropdown. All I have to do is drag and drop. I can deactivate a board, or I can edit a board directly here from the actions column. What we're going to do, we're going to start from scratch. We're going to create a new board. So we're going to go through. We're going to do a sample board. Is it active? Yes, it's active, or no. Now, do we want to send a notification to the assigned user or team? If so, I'm going to check that on. So pretty much they're going to get notifications with anything associated with this work order board. Now, do I want to send a notification to the submitted by user? So if I'm submitting a work order, do I want to send almost like a receipt that says, Daniel, this is notifying you that your work order was submitted, and then those notifications are going to be sent to the submitted by user as well as the user that it's assigned to. Now, from here, I can assign the entire board to either a user or a team. So maybe I have an SCBA maintenance team. So what I can do is I can select the team, and we'll see here, we'll do the maintenance team. And then now, anytime something happens with this board, the notification is going to go to the maintenance team and to whoever submitted the work order. This is very important. This is kind of subtle here. Allow to edit users or team. So what this does, if I don't select this, if I create a work order that's going to this work order board, it's automatically going to assign it to the maintenance team. It's going to be grayed out, and the submitting user cannot change it. The maintenance team is always going to get any work order that's added to this sample board. If I allow user to edit, if I click this, when they submit the work order, they can select from a dropdown who they want it to assign to. So again, just a different workflow for different departments. I'd imagine a lot of your bigger departments, they're going to have the work orders are going to be sent to a specific team. Maybe you have a smaller department that not a lot of personnel. Maybe it's like, hey, assign this to so-and-so for the next couple of weeks, and then assign these wherever, or whatever it may be. But again, that's what this button does. When creating a work order, it allows users to edit who the work order is going to be assigned to. Next is the phase name. The phase name, when we create these, what the phase name is going to do, let me go back to work orders here. The phase names are these vertical columns. So we can have as many or as few phases as we want. So we'll go through here. We'll name this, let's see, submitted will be the first phase. Maybe we want to do received. Maybe we want to do in progress. And then completed. And we'll do completed. Okay, now, so now what we've done is we've created those 4 columns. If you want to add another one, click the plus. If you want to remove one, remove it. One thing to point out here, whatever the first phase is, you have to have at least one phase. Whatever the first phase is, it's going to be submitted. Or excuse me, this is the default placement for the new work orders. So it doesn't matter what we name this. If someone puts a new work order in, it's going to go to this first phase. Notice as I keep adding, this last phase, this moves. So whatever the final phase is going to ultimately be the terminating, ending work order phase. So we'll take that off. We'll see it'll go back to here. Next is when to archive work orders. So maybe we're going to archive them after 3 days. And again, this is a days here. It doesn't say, but it's how long are we going to have them in there? So what this number means is once I move that work order over into the completed phase, how long is it going to sit in completed before it archives and goes away? So for this one, we're going to put it for 3 days. Next, this is where we build out the work order types. So now we can build out the particular work order types. So when we created the new work order, when we went through, we submit the work order. Now we're going to put it on apparatus. Which apparatus, we put it in here, and then work order type is up here. So this is where we're building out what are the work order types that we're building out. So that's where we're building these. So we'll close that one. We'll go back. So work order type, maybe we'll call it urgent, or maybe we'll call this one, maybe this is electrical. It's an electrical work order type, and we're going to call this low priority. Now we can copy this, and maybe we have an electrical that we want to do medium priority. We can copy it. Now we want to do electrical high priority. Whatever that may be. Again, you can create multiple work order types, multiple type names, multiple categories of priority, and then go through and create the work order board. So now we go through. When we're done, we hit save. I can't do electrical because electrical already been taken. So let's see if electrical 1, 2, 3 has already been taken. Or excuse me, I think these have to be unique of each other. There we go. So now our sample board has been created. When we go to work order boards, we can go to our sample board and we can see this is the board that we've created. So that's work orders. Work orders are very, very user-friendly, pretty easy, pretty simple process. Now we've created that sample board. That's the work order boards. I'm going to drag down to work order history. Take a look here. What work order history does, this is a master list of all work orders in the system. So we can go through, we can break it down by board. So we'll go to our sample board. We'll see there's nothing there because we just created it. We can go to the equipment board, any equipment that's been here. Now we do have the availability to go back in from here, view the work order history. I can also edit an old work order from here as well. I can go back in, kind of bring an old work order back to life. We'll close that out. Or I can delete the work order record from here as well. So again, this is just a running list of all of the work orders associated with that. All right, so we'll go back here. And that essentially will go back to the apparatus checks view. That brings us down through checklist, work orders. Now we can do compartments. So we're going to have compartments are associated with apparatus. And then the storages are associated with stations, and pouches are associated with kits. So I can create a new compartment directly from here. I go in, I create the new compartment, and then basically maybe we're going to name the compartment rear compartment B. Now, do I want to associate this compartment with the checklist? This is where I talked about earlier about how we can have the compartment associated with a checklist, or if there's any equipment in that compartment, any par values, any equipment values, things like that, it will show up attached to the bottom of that checklist. So maybe we're going to attach this to the demo checklist. Now, do I want to copy an existing compartment? Maybe we want to copy from the Engine 99 medical cab compartment. We can click copy, and then it's going to copy any inventory from that medical cab to this new compartment. Now, notice it doesn't copy equipment. The reason being is inventory does not have a unique identifier. Inventory are things that can be, think of your consumables, think of low cost items where it doesn't really matter which one I have. I just need to have a specified quantity of them. Whereas equipment has a unique identifier. Think of chainsaws, power tools, things like that. The reason it won't copy the equipment is because equipment is a unique entity. It cannot exist in two places at once. The same thing with a kit. The kit can't exist in multiple places at once. So from here, I can add additional inventory to this compartment. I can add equipment. So I can start to search. When I put the chainsaw, maybe this chainsaw here that's in storage, I want to add it in here. And put it in this compartment. Maybe I want to add a kit, so I can go through here, add a kit from here. I can create a new kit directly from this screen. We can cancel this out and go through and add. This is where I'm adding the components of the compartment. Once we go through, we'll click create. Let's put a minimum here. Put a minimum of 25. It says we have 50. Let's also put a minimum of 25 here. Let's say that those expire on the 29th. We'll go through, we'll create the compartment. And then now we should see rear B is here. We'll also see that it is associated with the demo checklist. So again, when we talked about checklist, that's where I showed you associating those compartments with a check. The association comes in really handy if you want to create a checklist that has like a daily par level, things like that on it. It's important that the client knows not to build those out in the checklist. Basically associate the compartment that you want parred with that checklist. That way you can go through and do that par check. Then if the quantities change or we update the quantities within the compartment, we don't have to go through and rebuild the checklist. Essentially, when it associates, it's automatically going to update to that specified checklist. So we can go through, we can expand these. We'll see here that in the engineer's rear compartment, we have ladders. Looks like this is a ladder compartment. There is no inventory. We can go through. If I want to edit those contents, all I got to do is go here, edit it. If I want to add it to the checklist, add it from here, and then again, go through and manage the components of that compartment. What exists in this compartment? I can do it all directly from this screen. That's going to bring me to the next feature that I want to talk about. We're going to kind of take a run back up to the top, to the overview, and I want to talk about equipment swapping. So something that came into that we got a lot of feedback about was essentially, I'm taking an apparatus out of service and I'm swapping into a reserve unit. Is there an easy, quick way for me to move all of that equipment from engine 99 maybe to engine 99 reserve? And there wasn't for a long time. However, now we could go through when we toggle this out of service, and I told you earlier I was going to come back to this. Now we have 3 different options that we can do. I can update the status only. If I click update status only, what that does, it takes engine 99 out of service, and it just updates it. It leaves all the equipment on it. So maybe the engine's only going out of service for an hour. Maybe it's waiting on personnel. We're not going to move any equipment. Next is the relocate button. What the relocate button is going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to relocate that equipment to multiple locations, such as storage rooms, things like that. And then the swap button is going to allow us to swap from one apparatus to another one. I'm going to start with swap, and then I'll show you relocate later, because after swap, it's going to give us an option to go to relocate. So we'll just do it that way. So we're going to click on swap here. Now, engine 99 is going out of service. It's going to ask me, which unit are you swapping with? We're going to put this stuff in engine 99B. It's going to pre-fill all of the information. Again, this is a training account. I don't know why engine 99 would be called engine 7 when it's dispatched, but for the sake of argument today, it is. So we'll go through. We're going to put up where it's located. Maybe this reserve apparatus is now coming to station 7. Maybe this apparatus used to be engine 7. Maybe we want the reserve to be called engine 7, and so forth. So from here, we can update those type of fields. Next, we're going to go through. We're going to click continue. This is where we're actually going to do the unit swap over. So I can actually swap all of the contents of the compartments just by selecting them. We can go through, select these, and then swap them over where they need to go. More than likely, what's going to happen, these are going to go more on a compartment by compartment basis. So let's say we're going to move just the ladders. So we have our ladders in here. I know that they're in the rear compartment. That's where I put them. However, let's say I didn't know where the ladders are. I want to find the ladders. If I click search here and then click ladder, it's going to only show me the compartments that have something that contains that word in it. So now I'll see the rear compartment has the ladders. So now I select the rear compartment and notice nothing happens. I can't transfer yet. What I need to do is now I need to select where they're going. So maybe I want to put them from the rear compartment of engine 99 to the rear compartment of engine 99B. So now when I click on the rear compartment, it shows me the contents. There are no rear compartments here. Or excuse me, there are no ladders in the rear compartment. Now notice I have a blue arrow here. So I can go ahead and move those over to that compartment. So now we've moved the ladders from the rear compartment over here into the rear compartment over there. Maybe I did it erroneously. I want to put them back. I can put them back in the rear compartment. So basically I can just revert it. So for this, we'll go through, we'll move them over, put them in the rear compartment. If the compartment that I want to put them in doesn't exist, I can create the compartment directly from this screen. Maybe the reserve, for whatever reason, the cab is missing or whatever. All I have to do is click the plus and I can create a new compartment directly from here. When I'm finished, what I want to do is click continue. And then now I'm going to get the option. It's going to say, do you want to select another location to continue transferring items from this apparatus? If not, I just save and finish and I'm done. Or I click continuing transferring. When I click continue transferring, this is the same thing as if I were to put relocate. So for example, maybe some of the equipment is going to be swapped over, but then I'm going to put some other equipment maybe in a storage room. Maybe we're taking the power tools off, and then we're going to put some stuff in the storage room. So let's go through here. Maybe the generator is going from the rear compartment, the engineer's rear compartment. I want to put it into station 19 storage room. We'll put that over. We continue. Now that's been done. The system is going to continue to ask us if we want to transfer to another location. If the answer is no, we're going to go ahead, we're going to save and finish. And then now that equipment has been transferred over. So that is managing compartments. If we go to stations, you're going to notice we're going to have the exact same drop down for a station, except it's going to be storages. They're managed exactly the same way. A storage room is to a station what a compartment is to an apparatus. And then when we go to kits, you're going to see that kits are set up as pouches. So when we go to an EMS bag, EMS ensemble, we manage the pouches the same way. All right, so that is our compartments. Next, we're going to go through and just to finish the checks view, we have our fluids. We've already discussed this. This is where we see the running log of the fluids, and then the logbook. Notice here, anything that's done in the assets module will automatically log. Notice this here, this is the one we put in earlier where we washed and waxed the apparatus and we created that log entry. Only manual log entries can be edited or deleted. If the system generates, it's kind of a fail-safe. If the system generates that, we cannot edit the system generated or delete system generated log entries. So those are our checks views. We've gone over work order boards in their entirety. Next, we're just going to kind of go over the list views. We're almost done here. We're going to get this wrapped up. So the list views, think of this as the master list of all of the apparatus. So if we wanted to go in, I can filter this. We have really expansive filter views here. So I can filter by group. Maybe I only want to see the engines. Maybe I also want to show engines that are archived. I can apply that filter. And then now it's going to show me that filter. Maybe I have a filter that I use quite a bit and I want to save the filter. What I can do is I click this. It's going to save that filter view. We'll call it Daniel's view. I save it. Once I save that filter view, now that is going to show up in this dropdown. So I can go through station 19 engines were saved. There's a test that was done here that has all of this in there. So again, if you have multiple views that are utilized, we can save a view through here. When we click the new apparatus button, say we're going to add a new apparatus, we click new apparatus. It's essentially going to bring us to the exact same view that we went over with the edit apparatus view. And we fill out all of the fields. We can do as much or as little as we'd like. However, any field that is required is going to be notated as being required. So once the required fields are in, we can go through the specification screen, fill all of this out, and then click create. That's how we create those new apparatus, right? Also, when we go through, we can go to the, we can archive or delete from here. Very important, archived apparatus. When we archive an apparatus, this is non-reversible. So once an apparatus is archived, essentially what it does, this is reserved for kind of like an end of life. Maybe you sell it, you sell an apparatus, the apparatus is no longer going to be put in service, it's gone. We can archive it. It'll save all of the information associated with that apparatus, but it's no longer available for use in the first two system. If we delete an apparatus, it deletes everything associated with it from the first two system. So very important that that users are aware of those differences. So we go to the equipment list. Equipment list is laid out exactly the same way. We go through here, go through the equipment list, and then we can edit equipment, copy equipment, and so forth. For new equipment, we go through, we click the new equipment button. We can add equipment directly through these screens. Again, we kind of went over this stuff. Now, it's very important. One thing I want to point out is if you want to use the barcode scanning feature, the barcode must be scanned in the equipment ID field. This is where it's going to be read from. You can also scan the serial number. However, this just scans the serial number into the system, but it's not searchable. It can't be searched when looking for a piece of equipment. When you're searching for a piece of equipment, this is the barcode that is going to be searched for. Also on the equipment list, let's leave here. On the equipment list here, we have the availability to import equipment. So we can import directly from CSV. So I'll download the sample spreadsheet, open this up here for you. Let's take a look here. All right, so we can go through. If you have a list to be imported, we can do it directly by CSV. So we can name it the equipment ID, make, model, serial numbers, manufacturer, all of this stuff. The inventory stuff that's on the equipment list, these they don't come in. So you can leave these blank. And then we can go through, put the gear. Are you going to associate it with a user, an apparatus, a compartment, reference, pouch, all of that kind of stuff. All of that can be updated directly here. And then we can do bulk importing of equipment into the system. If for whatever reason the information doesn't import in, the system will generate an error. It'll generate a CSV spreadsheet that you'll receive that'll basically say, these are the error fields, this is why it wasn't imported, and so forth. I would recommend importing, do a little bit at a time. I wouldn't, just to make sure that everything's set up correctly, maybe import all the bunker coats at once, maybe import all bunker gear at once, that kind of thing, and then go through, rather than creating one huge master list. It is a little easier to chunk that down. Now, we do have a new feature, which is the import wizard. This is a really, really cool tool. It allows us to map where we want those fields to go. So maybe you have a client that has exported equipment from a different vendor, and now we're going to be importing it into First Due. What we can do is we can open the import wizard up. We can put our file in here. So let's go through. Should be the one I just downloaded. Let's put that file in there. I'm going to click next. Now it's going to allow me to map fields. So for name, which field in my file do I want to be the name? So I can go through, select which one I want to go where it needs to go. So we can go through, we can map exactly where everything needs to go. When I click next, it's going to analyze it. It's going to say there's one item ready for import. Remember, there was only one item on there. And then it's going to say that we have an error. There is one record that has the same identifier. Do you want to just skip it, or do you want to overwrite it? So I'm going to tell the system what to do. Then I click next, and then it's going to allow me to import it. No rows were imported because I skipped that one. So I go through and click finish. If you're going to be importing via CSV for equipment, I would definitely recommend probably using the import wizard more so than the direct CSV import, because, like I said, it's going to allow you to map. It doesn't have to be an exact match. It allows you to map where those are going to go. So we'll close this out. We'll exit, and that is how to import bulk import of equipment. Same thing with stations. Stations are kind of the same thing. A lot less information with a station. Probably not doing a lot of bulk importing of stations. These are going to be added in. However, you can do the CSV import. Currently, the import wizard is only available for equipment bulk imports. Hopefully, that's something that'll start to get mapped out, and we can use it in all of the modules. Kits, the kit list operates the same way. Not going to go over that. Next, we're going to talk about inventory. Inventory operates a little bit different than everything else. So inventory, what we're doing in inventory is we're creating the inventory to be added where it lives. Creating inventory in the inventory list does not create quantity. It doesn't add new inventory anywhere. So for instance, we're going to go through here. We're going to click new inventory. And this is our field for inventory. So for inventory group, where do I want to add this inventory to? Do I want to add it to a group? Maybe I want to add it to the medical equipment group. What's it called? We're going to call it test IV supplies. 1, 2, 3. Now, do I want to identify a SKU number with it? If so, I can identify it. Now, packaging, how do these come packaged? This is where we talked about earlier when we built out the packaging tab. If the package wasn't built out and set up, it's not going to be available in this dropdown. So we'll go through here. We'll say it came in a box. I can put a description and then so forth. Now, these are where I decide how much information I want associated with this inventory. Do I want to quantify it? Most inventory, we're going to want to quantify. So we're going to toggle this on. If I'm quantifying it, what is the minimum that I want specified. So do I want to put like a minimum par level? If so, yes. Now, do I want the notification to be sent out if it's below minimum? Yes. Now, do I want to put a maximum? If I want to put a maximum, I can put it in. Maybe I only want to have a minimum, but I don't want to put a maximum. We can turn the maximum off. And then expiration date. Do I want to associate an expiration date with this inventory? And do I want the expiration date to be a required field? So if so, I put that on. And then what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll save that inventory. So now we can filter the list down. We put it in medical equipment, I believe. Apply it. Our test IV supplies 1, 2, 3 here. So now notice test IV supplies have been created. It's showing that we have no total units. A lot of users don't understand. Well, hey, I want to add IV supplies. I just created the inventory. How do I add it? What I can do is I can go directly to the location in which it lives. So let's go to a kit. Let's go to one of these EMS bags. We'll go to the Engine 7 jump bag. I can go to the pouch here, edit the contents of the, we'll just put it in the trauma pouch here. So now for adding inventory, well, when I go through here, I can put my test IV supplies 1, 2, 3. Now notice here, this is where these fields come in. So I can specify the minimum. I want a minimum of 2. Now there are 2 that are in here. If I leave it, I'm going to get notified like, hey, this quantity is not enough. And then I can associate an expiration date with it. If I try to save it, notice here, expiration date is a required field. That's because we turned the expiration date on and we specified that it's a required field. Had we toggled expiration date off, had we toggled quantity off, had we toggled the minimum off, these fields would be blank. They wouldn't be available. So we'll put this in here. We'll make it expire tomorrow, and then we'll save it. Now what's going to happen when we go back to our inventory list, and we look at our test IV supplies, we can now see that there are 2 total units. If I click the edit icon, it'll show me exactly where they live. So we'll see the expiration date, we'll see the running log of where this inventory is associated or where it lives. Also from here, what we can do is we can bulk import inventory using a CSV file. So again, this is something that you click on the import here, you download the sample spreadsheet, and then you can go through and select those import fields, and then upload the file and then import that inventory in bulk. Next, we also have the inventory receive feature. This is kind of a cool feature. What this is made for is, think about if you're receiving inventory, you have a box of stuff that you ordered, and then now you want to put it where it goes. So we click the receive inventory. Currently, vendor is a required field. We got it from Jim's Fire Supplies with the order number. Now, what are we adding? Maybe we got the test IV caths, or the test IV supplies we just created. Where do I want to put them? Maybe I want to go in EMS storage and put 5 of them there. And then I can save that, or I can do more. So we can add it. Maybe we're doing, so we're going to put 5 of them there. Maybe we put a couple of them in equipment storage. I can associate the price. We're going to put 3 of them there, and so forth. We can go through, we can add the inventory, and basically this is where we can put quantity into the system. Another thing that's important, very important, if we haven't built the inventory in the system, it's not going to be available in this dropdown. So in order for it to be available, it has to be created on the inventory list or imported into the system. So we'll click save here, and then we'll now see that those IV supplies, now we'll see we have 9 of them. We can click on it, and then this is where we put those in. However, I didn't put the expiration date in there, so that basically those were associated without an expiration date. All right, that is the inventory list. So the list views are the same. Bulk checks we've discussed. We've talked about the work order history. We've done the setup in its entirety. Next is the system log. The system log is just that. It's kind of a view only of the system log. You can go through, you can filter this down, search for the asset name. These are free form type fields, and then we can filter down, we can look at the log. The log is essentially, like I said, a tattletale log. Anything that is done, it documents who does it, and then what was done. Last thing I'm going to go over before I let you go for the day, we're going to talk about the dashboard. The dashboard is something that is currently in the process of being reworked, but for the time being, this is what we have here. So you can begin checks directly from the dashboard. Essentially, all you have to do, locate the apparatus, the equipment, station, or kit. So for apparatus, we'll go to our trusty engine 99. We'll take a look. It'll see there's nothing new. We can look at, maybe I'm on engine 19, maybe I'm on engine 17. We can go through. Here we go. Engine 7 has some new. So engine 7 has the apparatus daily DOT checks that were incomplete. These are probably some that we jumped in earlier and then jumped back out of. We can resume them from here. We can start this overdue check. We can resume the check. We can join checks directly from here. The same is for equipment, stations, and the kits. The work order list is just a 3,000-foot view of the work orders associated in the assets module. I can go through, I can click the view icon and view any of those work orders from the dashboard. And then again, we have a view of the system log where we can just see the most recent things that were done in the assets module. That is the assets module in a 2-hour nutshell. Again, I appreciate it if you're still paying attention. Hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to myself, or we're all pretty receptive at the training team. You know, I speak for myself when I say, feel free to look me up on Teams, send me a message if you have a question. I'm more than happy to help out with anything associated with assets. Thanks for joining. Have a great day. Be safe.